Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Beginner Veneer Earrings, brought to you by tinypandora.com. Today I've got some colors together. They don't look color true on this shot, that's for sure, because that pink down there is actually fuchsia. It's much darker and purpler, but that's the light we have today, so we'll just live with it. And then that's some zinc yellow I had on hand that I really like, and that's some peacock. Those are all Primo by Sculpey. So I'm putting together my triangles. You can put them together any way you like. You want to emphasize one color more than the other, that's fine. But this process is going to create some kind of orange and green tones that I want in this, and that's why I've chosen them. I think this would be beautiful with all kinds of pastels. I'd even like to do it in sepia tones. It's kind of endless. So I take them like this and I make them into more of a rectangle. And through this method with the square pairs, I compress them. They stick together a little bit better. So we're going to fold this up in this direction. We're going to bring it in on to itself to put it through the clay machine. And we'll pass it through as many times as we want until it looks the way we want. So there's no rules on that. I'll take it several times. You'll see that I've got that little package of clay up there on the pasta machine. And that's helping me keep my blend from getting too wide. But I'm going to take it through a few times, just on a number 1. Those original strips were a 0 or a 1, I think. And I'm kind of patching in those corners to get the shape established a little bit better before it starts going all wonky on me. And you can do that anytime. You can add colors to the corners, like I'm doing, to kind of keep it, you know, in line a little bit longer. I think Skinner blends are always going to shift around, and they're always going to protrude because of the rollers that are in these machines. So they can have kind of a tight side and a loose side, but all that goes away and you can control the width with your little block of clay. So that's just a hint for you. I think they make a special like a tool to do that. You know, I don't have one of those, but I'm sure it's a cool idea. So I'll take it through a few more times and then I'll thin it out a little bit. Go to the next setting when I'm ready to use it. As you can see, it's getting really pretty. I went ahead and blended it more to get that hot orange, and you'll see that when we put it back in and make the long strip, it kind of reveals more of the colors. So I've asked myself before, you know, well, why do you go to the trouble to make this blend and then put it back in there and thin it out into this long strip and then crinkle it all back up again like we're going to do? Well, that's the reason, because the more, the thinner that your strip is and longer, the more gradation of color you get. You just get to see a few more of the shades. It's not, you know, life and death. But I like the way it looks. So we've got that now, and we're going to make our strip. And it's kind of up to you on this. Today I'm taking this all the way like to a number 6. I think I've told you many times that I don't work with much material less than 6. 6 is getting toward, you know, 9, which 9 is my thinnest on this machine. Some of the numbers are reversed. You might see that on yours. But anyway, I'm taking it down to a 6, which is about as much headache as I want to give myself, because, you know, they get long and wavy. Sometimes they get stuck together. If they do, just keep working with them. Believe me, these little things that happen aren't going to affect your final project. So now I'm going to fan fold this like an accordion. I know that Fiona Abel Smith, the wonderful artist, says concertina, which of course is accordion also. So I learned it as fan fold. It's the same thing. So now I've taken that big long strip, I've made it back into a little bundle, and I can kind of reveal more of my colors that way and kind of give it a little bit more shading. And I'll trim off one end just so I can see a little bit better and so that you can see it a little bit better. Wouldn't necessarily have to trim at this stage, but I'm going to kind of see where we're at. Once that's done, I'm going to cut it in half. Now see, I could put it back together and I could line it up like this, start getting the width that I want. But it's a lot more fun for me if I can start changing this pattern, and I'm going to do that now. So I put the red down at the bottom. I just flipped it over. I'm going to trim off that other side. And I'll square it up a little bit for slicing. So you can see this is an easy veneer. And it can be made as small as you want. So if you wanted a finer scale, you know, you would have just kept reducing that stack. But, you know, video isn't about that. I want to get to the rest of it. So I'm just going to slice it up and start using it like this because it's really pretty. I wish you could see it in person. You know I have light issues if you watch my live show. I've got every kind of lights, really. I've got a lot of very fancy lights in the studio. And I still really have no talent for lighting the shot. It seems like when you get it nice and bright, then it's glary, you know, or it makes hot spots in the glass. So it's like, oh shoot, you know, I wish I knew more about this. See that little hand? That was Elena dropping something off. I don't know if you YouTubers are watching Crafting Live, excuse me, with Elena and me, Pandora. Anyway, we're over on Facebook every Saturday from 3 p.m. to about 5. See that blend size there? I'm going to cut that down a little bit more. You don't have to do any of this. You could have left it like it was to begin with. But this is just a playtime. It's fun for you to arrange it in interesting ways. So I'm going to offset those two strips too, make them be different. Just give us a little bit more detail in this to look at. Anyway, we're on every Saturday, so come see us. I'm going to put a link down below there, okay? So you can come over and join us. We're on every week, except, you know, if there's something that we have to do, but usually we're on every week. We have a lot of sweethearts down there, and we all talk to each other. It's super enjoyable. So I've got that about the size and scale that I want. I like the way those you know, accent pieces kind of pop around in that design. They're random, yet they're not. They're coordinated. And now I'm just going to make sure that it's as rectangular as it can be before I start messing with it. If I put that in now, I'm going to have some long oval shapes sticking out the ends. So when I trim this, I don't want to have to trim a lot off. So I'm taking my square pairs and just making sure that it's rectangular when it goes in, and I'm going to thin it out a little bit. Now this decision is yours to make. I don't want this to get too big. I don't want this scale of this pattern to start getting too big for earrings, so I'm not going to take it down very thin. I'm just going to make sure it's uniform and flat, because so far it's just hand rolled. You can go one more or you can stop. I'm going to go one more. And I think that's going to be just perfect. I took it down one more. I think that's probably about a 3 now. And it doesn't need to be any thinner than that. So now we know it's smooth. We know that it's stuck together. And we can silk screen it. Isn't that a gorgeous silk screen? I'm telling you, I'm mad about it. Fine Detail Sorrel Flower, ojoycreationsinc.com. I'm going to give you a link to Mary Joy Coleman's site. She does such a beautiful job as a businesswoman and on her quality, and I can highly recommend her store. So ojoycreationsinc.com, but there'll be a link down in the description box for you. She's got literally hundreds of silk screens, but you'll see I'm using a symmetrical design today, because my little trick to show you today is that I can get all kinds of matching earrings out of a symmetrical design. right? I can cut in the places that are going to make matching patterns. And that way this one little, you know, what, 3.5 by 3.5 inch square is going to make 2 pair of earrings with even with the little studs on top. And those can match too because you've got all this material to work with. So I've used my parchment to smooth that because mainly you don't want any bubbles really in any of your sheets, but you sure don't want them in something you're going to silk screen. Have your water handy, please. You'll be glad. The only way you're going to ruin a silk screen is to let that paint dry in it. So we drop them right in there. It's just water with a few drops of soap in there. Anyway, this is some body paint. Not that it's for your body, but it has heavier body. And I like it for metallics because I've seen that regular acrylic metallic paints can be a little watery. And this is a delicate little design that's never going to, you know, be in your face to stand out. It's like a lacy kind of look. So you're going to want to make sure that it is good in silver or whatever color you're using. So for metallics, I recommend a body paint, a tube paint like this. It's from Hobby Lobby, I think. I'm sure that Michael's, my store of preference, has it too. So I just used a gift card. You can use a squeegee, all kinds of tools. I'm going to peel that off. Now this is not a dramatic reveal because as you can see from the completed project, that's when you see this pattern. Right now we're just going to know that there's something there, but you'll see it come along on its own. It's got all kinds of stuff waiting for us to cut out there to make our earrings. So I have to let that dry, and while it dries I will make the backing. So you may have seen from I guess the shot is kind of at the end where you see the back of this, but I like to make the backs look really neat. And I've got this texture stamp, which as you can see is my favorite texture stamp. It's called Love Letter, and I have it in my store. It's the only texture stamp I have, really. It's the only one I need because that scale is small enough to go on the back of anything that I make. And you see how I have kind of cut around it a little bit, the texture stamp? That's because I can butt it up against each other and make continuous patterns of that writing. They just have a lot of mystery to them that I like. So I make the best impressions, I think, by laying the clay on top of the stamp instead of the other way. I never feel I've got control of the depth of the stamp when it's face down. So I lay it face up with the clay on top of it. See a day like today when we got some sticky clay and a little warmth in the room? Just wet your hands a tiny bit. You do that with Sutton Slice too and it'll save you. So now I'm going to have this pressed down in here without it biting me back so much because my hands are a little bit damp. You don't need a lot. You don't want a lot of water on it. That way when I roll over it, it won't roll back up because you've had that happen, right? You go to roll it and it just comes off on the roller and you're like, oh no. So it's stuck down well, but it's not stuck down so much that it'll stick into the stamp. So that's about how you want it. Isn't that interesting? I had someone translate it for me. It was really sweet. It was a really sweet letter. It's, you know, in French, so it's not like I can read it. Okay, this tile business is really important. You know how usually you don't want things to stick to your tile or you worry about shiny spots and stuff? Well, forget about all that. Stick it to your tile. Because once this is stuck on here, not only is it easier to control your cutting later on, but man, talk about easier to put your resin on. You know, who wants to hold on to little tiny pieces while they flop around and you try to put resin on them, right? So you're sticking your backing, the back facing down so it's facing outward, onto your tile. This is really super easy. Now that veneer could be any veneer you have, so don't forget about that. You can still use this technique. You can kind of see the pattern better through that paper, how pretty it is. Huh? So it's stuck together. I rubbed it with my parchment. I know it's stuck down. See how you could make a pendant with that beautiful pattern? You could line it up in the center. Maybe someday we will, but not today because we want 4 different earrings and we want each set to match. So I'm kind of doing it like this. And when I say 4 different earrings, I mean 4 pieces, but I'm just saying that the 2 pairs, we want them each to match, and we can do that because we've got it right there. So a symmetrical design like Mary Joy provided for us is really handy for something like this. Can you imagine how dramatic this would be if it was like pearl white with gold or black with silver? I just wanted to share with you the quick veneer today with this one because I've been asked, for some easy, reliable veneers, and this one's always pretty no matter what colors that you use. But yeah, this silkscreen, I'll probably, wear it out because I like to use one thing over and over until I'm, kind of satisfied with it. Now for your tops, your little stud areas, you just pick 2 matching pieces and just cut them right out. I've got all these different cutters, and you'll see me use a lot of different ones, but Mary Joy does have similar cutters down at Oh Joy Creations, and I'll leave you a link to that. So those are cut out now, and all I got to worry about is peeling it off, and I'm just going to go slowly, and it's really hanging on there because it's stuck to the clay, and that's what we want. We'll be careful with that last little piece, make sure we don't tear anything, make ourselves any problems. There you go. Now I've got my interesting scrap for Natasha's, huh? You cut more little things out of that. We can make a pretty bail out of what's left there if you want to. So there they are. I've got 2 sets of earrings now, and that's how they look when they're done. So you can see how the magic gloss brings out that silver, and how pretty the love letter stamp looks on the back of that. So what we'll do is I'll show you how I put these together and how I put the resin on them. I just wanted to have a finished pair to share with you, and then we'll start on the others. Here's the little ovals, and we're going to coat them while they're still stuck to the tile. Not going to fall off, so that's what you want. I'm touching them a little more than I should because the oil from your hands can repel coatings. This one hasn't gotten out of hand, but you may want to keep that in mind and not touch areas that you're going to resin any more than you have to. If you have a piece of clay that you've touched a lot and it doesn't have silkscreen on it, you could wipe it off with alcohol to dry that off. But this has silkscreen on it, so I can't really wipe it off. So I guess my point is, you don't have to keep feeling them all the time. I'm always touching stuff I shouldn't be touching. So for this magic gloss, which I do have at tinypandora.com, it's Lisa Pavelka magic gloss. I've used it many times. I've had nothing but great luck with it. It has no odor. So what I do is I use mine with a stick rather than with the spout, because I don't know about you, but when it comes to glues and resins, a spout issue can really jack up your day. So I use my corn stick and make a rim around the edge, and that's how you keep all doming resins from pulling toward the center too much. That little ring is going to stick to itself, and it's going to do just what we need it to do. Now for these, I went ahead and put a drop in the middle and spread it because they're slightly sloped downward, and I know they're not going to pull back. But on a flat one like those ovals, you want to make that rim around it with your magic gloss before you fill it in. So you see a ring around the ovals, the other ones are filled in. I've got a little curing deck I made because I don't like the curing decks that come in these lights. I'm going to make some more of these for you guys, I hope, because it really comes in handy. So backward rocking is 2 minutes, and forward rocking is stay on. I'm going to leave it on stay on because I got other stuff to do. I don't want to have to watch the timer. So that's done, and it's firm now. It's cured. That was I put that in there for 6 minutes. And now I'm going to fill it in. Now listen, your time may differ because, believe it or not, barometric pressure affects resin quite a bit. This is a damp state I'm in. I'm in Indiana, and it's really moist here. But I've heard of people having a 20-minute cure time on even a little ring like that of resin. So just be patient with yourself. Just kind of touch it lightly. You're not going to ruin it, but kind of touch it lightly. And if it gives you any stickiness at all, it needs to go back in the light. And you'll get your own patterns of time as you work with it. So I put that magic gloss in the middle now, and I'm drawing it over the edge. So you don't just go up to the ridge that you made, you actually go over it. Then I'll hit it with the lighter, take the bubbles out, cure it up. And I did it for 12 minutes on that one because it was a little bit thicker. And it came out great. They always do. If you ever have trouble with your magic gloss or your deep shine, please email me, busypandora@gmail.com, and I'll help you. So the stud tops, there they are. I just pried it off. It kind of just popped it off of that tile now that we're through with doing the things that it needs to be stuck down for. What I do with my edges is I use a nail file, and it's just a lot easier than getting little things to go on sandpaper. And these have hardly anything sticking out of them. But sometimes when you're using 3D cutters, you might have a little bit more to file off, and it comes right off. And you do the same thing with your ovals, just to make sure that they're smooth to the touch. I couldn't actually feel any of that excess on there, but I could see a little bit. So you want to get it off, and the same thing here. That one has a little bit more to take off, but it's easy. You can get files like that at Sally Beauty Supply and a few other places. Now I'm going to put my deep shine on there, and I'm using my Goldilocks brushes because they are super soft synthetic bristles that feel like natural, but they're soft enough to do things that synthetic bristles can do. So those are in my store. I always carry them. People love them. They're nice and small. They don't take up too much space. So once those are cured, oh, by the way, that deep shine goes in the light for 5 minutes. It's real fast curing. You do all the backs and sides with it, and they'll be nice and shiny. It's really fast. So I've got my little piercing tool, and I'm making a pilot hole for my eye screws. There's gobs of ways to put any of these things together, but the eye screws are super easy. Just make sure your piece is thick enough. I think in the end, that's probably equivalent to a number 1 and a number 3 sheet together. You're going to need at least that much, because if it's way too thin and you stick that eye screw in between the two halves, you can split them open. If that ever happens to you, just put a little super glue in it, leave the screw in there, put a little super glue in that little breach, and just pinch it back shut, and it should be really firm. Super glue is absolutely perfect for metal to plastic bonds of any kind. The exception to that is the stud backs. I use it to put them on initially, but then I put resin over them because they do take some handling and wear, and maybe they're going to get wet in the shower or something like that. Super glue really is water soluble over time, so that's why I do 2 things on an earring back. But for, securing that screw, if it were loose, if you had any problems, you can kind of jimmy it together with some glue. My suggestion is that you have enough thickness to your piece to not only give it kind of a nice weight, but also to take an eye screw without, giving you grief. Once those backs are glued on there, it's just a couple drops of super glue. Then I let that dry and put on a little magic gloss, and that's going to really, seal it. The magic gloss goes over the metal, and it goes over the rest of the back, and it really makes a nice bond for you. I think it looks nice too. So now we're going to join them together. That's been cured for about 10 minutes. And I'm taking a little oval jump ring and putting these together. It was really easy and really fast. And now you have earrings. And there's the front and back of the others. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.